Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa has revealed that the 789 ex-combatants, repentant Boko Haram terrorists actually, are undergoing the de-radicalization, rehabilitation, and reintegration program under Operation Safe Corridor, with plans to reintegrate them into the society and provide a fresh start. Speaking at an OPSC stakeholders meeting in Abuja, General Musa, represented by the Chief of Defense Policy and Plans, Air Vice Marshal Sayo Olatunde, emphasized the need for collaboration and open-mindedness in ensuring the program's success. He stated that the 789 repentant Boko Haram members currently in the program are scheduled to graduate this year and will receive personal items and startup packages to assist in establishing small businesses and rebuilding their lives. Operation Safe Corridor was established to rehabilitate and reintegrate former Boko Haram members and Islamic State West Africa province, ISWAP, who voluntarily surrender. Since the program's inception, over 130,000 insurgents and their family members have laid down their arms. General Musa urged state governments to support the reintegration process by offering additional assistance and working with local and traditional authorities to monitor and track the progress of the repentant terrorists. All stakeholders must be actively involved in this reintegration process to ensure lasting peace and security in our country, he emphasized. He expressed gratitude to the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, as well as international partners for their continued technical and financial assistance. Ndamzi, what do you have to say?
Honestly, this is one policy I consider very, very wrong. Very wrong, and I see it as a policy that the government did not, the government is not being sincere in this de-radicalization policy.
Why do you say that?
Why I say so is because we have the IPOB in the southeast. How well have the government made effort to de-radicalize those that are clamoring for a just society? And you see, IPOB have been proscribed. They kill people. The security agencies kill these boys almost every day in the southeast. What is the plan of the government in de-radicalizing the IPOB struggle in southeast? But we hear they have, during the time of the past administration, so many were, reintegrated back into the society. We even learned that they were reintegrated into Nigerian army. That is very wrong. How do you bring in Boko Haram members into Nigerian army? What do you expect? The military will be infiltrated. You cannot hold information in confidence. There will be lag, serious lag in intelligence gathering. That is the truth. We just need to look at a spade and call it a spade in this country. What is happening in Nigeria is so disheartening. How do you bring in men that have killed people incessantly? Some of them have raped a lot of people. Some have cut off the heads of humans. Imagine what goes into their hearts. That is, what happens in their hearts. How do they think? What is the state of their mental health? Is it normal? Can they have a stable mental health? Having indulged in killings, maiming, destroying of communities and government facilities.
And after that, the interesting thing, is that after this, the things you have the picture you have painted now, the federal government is saying that they will be reintegrated into the same society that they have wreaked havoc upon.
Battered.
So now, how do these people look at them? Have we so forgotten Chibok girls and the fact that some of these girls are still missing? Some of these girls are still missing. How about the Kobeshe massacre? You know, how about the attack that lasted for how many days that literally almost wiped out how many communities in the north? Now, on the other hand, you talked about the IPOB. And when you were talking about the IPOB, it's very important that something is brought out. You were saying the government should de-radicalize IPOB.
The same method they are using
And on
here.
one hand, you called it an agitation, a struggle. It is, how do you de-radicalize agitation? You said that the agitation was for a just society. How do you de-radicalize people who are agitating, according to what you've said, for a just society? Are you de-radicalizing them to believe that the society that they feel they are marginalized is actually Eureka as it stands? That's on one hand. Then on the other hand, the federal government has proscribed IPOB, a terrorist organization. Boko Haram, I don't remember the federal government proscribing Boko Haram, or do you remember? What I know to the extent of my research is that Boko Haram was proscribed by the international community. And in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, Boko Haram was the deadliest terrorist organization in the world. And as at 2016, it was the second deadliest terrorist organization in the world, directly linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS and all of that. I mean, they were higher than Al-Qaeda and ISIS as at 2016 and 2015. And in between a space of 4 to 5 years, the statistics, I mean, it's out there. People can research this and find out the truth. Boko Haram, within a space of 4 years or thereabout, where the statistics had is that they have killed over 156 or 57,000, I think 156,500 Nigerians in Nigeria. And the government negotiated with them. Even while people they still have under their captivity have not been released. Some of them have not been released up till date. And the government is saying we'll integrate them into the system, you know, and all of that, and they are integrated even into the military. One would say, it brings to question about, is this hypocritical? Why is this going to one section of the country?
Okay. I would like to begin with the first question where you made mention of de-radicalization of the IPOB, which is asking for a just society, agitating for a just society, and also at the same time, asking the federal government to de-radicalize IPOB that is asking for a just society. Don't forget that in struggles like that, we will have criminal elements who may want to seize the opportunity of what is going on to commit crime, loot people, rob people, and all that. We saw that happening in Imo State. Group of hoodlums, constituted themselves to an armed squad, robbing people, maiming, killing, and all that. And all that happening in the region. What do you expect the government to say? The government will just say, oh, IPOB, because it's happening in the region. So this is on the one part, I think the government need to also look inwards. Because what is good for the north is also good for the south. That's the way I look at it. There should be this fairness in the country. So then on the second question you raised, it is very questionable very questionable, I repeat, that a government which is fighting insurgency, okay, is reintegrating same insurgents
They said they have been rehabilitated.
How? How do you measure the extent of rehabilitation? How do you quantify the extent of rehabilitation? How do you measure the extent of their mental health? What is the guarantee that the man who beheaded a little boy, you know, we've watched several
pregnant woman,
oh my God,
and brought out the child, like
So-
pregnant women who had their tummies slashed,
oh God,
the fetus brought out and killed and left on top of the mother's slashed belly. You understand?
Then tomorrow you will tell me that such a person is a repentant Boko Haram, and that such a person have been taken into rehabilitation. How? To what extent? How? How do you measure the extent of this?
They surrendered.
How?
They laid down their arms.
That is to say they are tired of fighting. It's either they do not have the firepower again to face the military. Because you can, I mean, it's so unheard of. See, the international community will be laughing at us by now. I must tell you the truth.
This is not the first reintegration.
It is not. It began from the last administration.
They have reintegrated over 130,000 repentants. And you know, the interesting thing when I was reading this story was they were calling them, they were not calling them repentant terrorists. They were calling them ex-combatants. You know, the thing with Nigeria is that Nigeria has a way of coming up with words. We are wordsmiths. We have a way of coming up with words to either dilute the effects of something or to give it another impression or another toga. But while I was reading the story, I called it what it was: ex-terrorist or repentant terrorist, as it were, not ex-combatants. Last time I checked, that word combatant is a trained military operative.
A trained
so I am
military
wondering
operative.
how the Chief of Defense Staff, I am wondering how the Chief of Defense Staff and his representative is calling ex-terrorists or repentant terrorists as combatants. That word, combatant, usually is a military word, and most times it is used for military officers who are combatants in the real sense of the word. So at what, from where to where did a terrorist move from being a terrorist to a combatant? So if they are ex-combatants, because now I'm picking the language of the Chief of Defense Staff, if they are ex-combatants, it means that they are not terrorists, they are combatants. It means that what we have is not Boko Haram terrorists, according to the Chief of Defense Staff. What we have is Boko Haram combatants, because they are called ex-combatants. So now, if I am to go by the statement of the Chief of the Defense Staff again, that they are ex-combatants and not ex-terrorists, why then, why the need for rehabilitation? Because they are not terrorists. The government in this instance do not recognize them as terrorists, but as combatants. Probably they would need to educate us even more. Probably there is something they know that Nigerians do not know. And I still want to know the use of that language. And I want to understand the rationale behind calling Boko Haram combatants and not terrorists when the international community has proscribed them as terrorists. Right. And I also want to understand the rationale behind integrating these people into the system and this rehabilitation process when they are still striking, and most of our children, wives, mothers, daughters, sons, husbands, fathers that are still being held captive are not being released. These are questions begging for answers. These are questions begging for answers. And then still brings me back to the question of the IPOB. If terrorists, if Boko Haram are being called terrorists by the international community, and Nigeria, the chief of defense staff, is changing their name to combatants. If terrorists are combatants, if terrorists, internationally acclaimed terrorists, are being renamed as combatants in this country, and agitators are proscribed as terrorists, what is the future of this country moving forward? Right? What is the reward system? Because it appears that the more people agitate and the more people break law, the system rewards you, you know, for doing things that are unacceptable. Last time I was asking questions too. I asked question of the Niger Delta agitation. There are men, the arrowheads, one of the arrowheads of that Niger Delta agitation is guiding the Nigerian waterways with his own combatants, if I may use that word. Let me borrow the language of the chief of defense staff. The combatants of that arrowhead, right, is being used, is being contracted to guard Nigeria. It is, I am wondering at the reward system of the country. But then, over to you once again, before I ask my final question.
Yes, you see, the reward system in this country is very low. We find ourselves in a system where the system does not encourage hard work and bravery. The system does not encourage those who have the technical know-how to expand their horizon to doing it well. The system likes it when you are up against them. Like, yeah, you made allusion to the Niger Delta struggle. We knew how, you know, when that struggle happened over years, the government of President Yar'Adua came in and came up with an amnesty policy. And once the amnesty was dished out, funds started flowing to the boys. And even people who never indulged in the struggle, in the Niger Delta agitation, joined in the name of, you know, receiving these stipends from federal government. So you see, the federal government, I see some of these, you know, policies as misplaced priority. They are not doing it well. They are only, you know, they are causing harm to the society indirectly by encouraging, you know, rewarding those who have either killed people, those who have destroyed our pipeline facilities, those who have abducted, killed, beheaded, and all that. Those who have done series of evil against the country. But could it be that the government is scared of these evil ones in the society? They alone know the answer. So mine is, I am very, very particular about reintegrating Boko Haram members into the society. That policy, I would advise that Mr. President should, as quickly as possible, reach out to the defense headquarters and look at that program, revisit it again. That reintegration of whatever name they target, we know them as Boko Haram. We know them as, these guys have placed Nigeria on a world map wrongly. Nigeria is in the wrong side of the map in the world today because of Boko Haram terrorism. Nigeria have lost lots of people. Nigeria have lost investors. People are scared, investors are scared to come into the northeast, not generally in quote. Investors are scared to come and tap into the mineral resources deposited in the north because of this agitation and terrorism. And our CDS is telling us that they are training, they are rehabilitating, and the worst part is not just rehabilitating to settling them in a different part of the country. They are still reintegrating them back into the society, and also the military. Our military that is highly exalted will now bring in polluted blood into our military. What do we think will happen? They will steal our arms. They will sell our arms. They will even connive. Because those guys in there, believe me, if there are 50, we must have like 20 or more of them who are informants to the Boko Haram group.
Which brings up another concern. You know, severally in the fight against insurgency, in the fight against terrorism and all that, particularly in the northeast, in the north, there have been concerns about military ambush. I mean, we've heard stories
on several occasions
about military ambush, that the military was going on a covert operation, on the line, covert, on a covert operation, and then somehow, even though it was more of covert and a tight-lipped operation, information was leaked. You know, the military, our military personnel keep getting ambushed. How? The question will be, how is the rank and file of the military leaked? How is information leaked? Because ambush has to do, for if people lay ambush for you, they had information beforehand.
Of course.
They knew the route you were going to take, and they knew the level of manpower, and you know, everything. They had details. The
level of firepower
and all that, and they had to prepare to overpower you. That would be the question. How is the rank and file of the military being leaked to a point? How is the rank and file compromised to a point that our military officers are always suffering ambush? Our military personnel are killed, are ambushed and killed when on covert operations.
What do we expect when we keep reintegrating in our language? We keep reintegrating terrorists. What do we expect? Like I said before, most of them will be infiltrating the military. They will be sharing secrets, official secrets of the military. They will be sharing it. Who knows if the Boko Haram organization, you know, did this intentionally to garner information? Who knows if it is a ploy to know the weaponry, the level of firepower that we possess? So the military should change this policy.
All right.
They should change this policy of de-radicalization and reintegration into our society. And these are people who should be kept in a secluded environment. In fact, if I'm to advise, I will advise them to, if really they want to reintegrate these persons, build a place like a mental home and keep them for a while. They need to be under check for a reasonable number of years. We need to be sure that these persons have actually, you know, that their mental health have become normal and stable. Otherwise, they are not fit and proper to be reintegrated back to the society. So the military should change this policy in the interest of peace and society, peace and security in our country, if really we want to win this war against insurgency.